Hello, my name's Kathleen Shaw, and today I'm going to be talking about my research into dress codes. Dress codes and uniforms saw a surge of popularity in elementary and high schools. However, the question remains as to whether they're a good idea for educational communities or not. The increased popularity of dress codes made me wonder how people in the audience felt about reflecting back on dress codes or dress policies at their schools. My questions were things like: have you ever been punished for the way you dressed or presented yourself? Did you ever think a dress code expectation was unfair? Do you remember other students complaining about or protesting dress codes? Personally, as an adult, I've thought a lot about the unfair messages I was sent about my body when I was a teenager due to strict dress codes that I now think were sexist. Through my research, I learned that there are drawbacks to dress codes. And in order to gain the benefits that they do also have, it's really important that institutions implement dress codes carefully and thoughtfully to avoid possibly racist, sexist, classist, or transphobic policy. I chose this topic after reading that some community colleges were deciding to implement dress codes. Since I work at a community college, it made me wonder if that was a good idea for the student body that I personally know. It made me reflect on my own negative experience with dress codes in high school. And I also remember reading a lot about protests against dress codes from high school students in the news, and I wondered what objections students might have had when they made those protests. The research questions that guided me were: are there dress codes in place in most colleges? Are these dress codes actually enforced in colleges? And what are the reasons for having dress codes in colleges? And as I went through the process of researching, some of the sources I found caused my project to shift a little to focus on whether or not dress codes were a good idea in general. Although I started kind of focused on college, it sort of broadened as I looked into it to understand basically, like, overall, what was the reasoning behind them throughout all educational institutions. So, some of the things I found that dress codes and uniform policies that are enacted without care and preparation can do more harm than good within educational communities. And that was sort of my major claim and a major finding after synthesizing all the research. My thesis changed in the writing process along with my focus, since I was no longer so narrowly concentrated on just colleges and dress codes. I kind of expanded it to look into dress codes in general in educational institutions. Some problems with dress codes. Dress codes stifle creativity and individual expression. Dress codes can be seen as classist. According to Pindharkar in a 2022 Education Week article, educators who enforce dress codes frequently punish girls, students of color, and LGBTQ plus students. So that can lead to dress codes being seen as enforcing unfair gender roles and promoting discrimination. And dress codes can also be seen as racist. That begs the question, why do so many administrators support dress codes? Why are there so many dress codes in place? Some of the reasons that people support dress codes is they create a sense of community within school. They promote safety and making it easy to easily identify who is a student and who isn't. And they also encourage professionalism. And these are some of the reasons listed for using dress codes in both higher education and in elementary education as well. In my opinion, the benefits that can be gained do not outweigh the drawbacks. It can create a non-inclusive community. Professional images are currently evolving, and not enough evidence exists to prove that dress codes make communities safer or less distracted. So for those different areas, my responses are varied. There are reasons that the benefits that we see may not be as beneficial as the potential harm that can be created. Some interesting things that I learned in my research included some facts about the history of uniforms in the US, including that uniform policies were popularized in the 90s by the Clinton administration as a direct way of dealing with gang violence. That's according to Batterai and Bloom. And dress codes are sometimes even required in preschool facilities, which was from an article by Batterai, mentioned that many preschools require some kind of dress code. I thought this was interesting because it seems so pointless to make toddlers wear dress codes. I suppose maybe the safety issue, but maybe the community. But it seemed kind of silly to me to enforce dress codes with toddlers. Another thing I learned is that many religious institutions have demanding and specific dress codes, including in higher education. So this is a graphic showing some of the men's guidelines for grooming from the Pensacola Christian College Student Handbook. And there are very specific rules about what's acceptable in terms of facial hair. I wasn't expecting to learn so many interesting things about the history of dress codes. I didn't know that going into this. I was expecting at the end of the project to feel really strongly either against or for dress codes. But I now believe that the situation is a little more complicated and nuanced. While I do think that the drawbacks can outweigh the benefits, I think if somebody creates a clear policy with the drawbacks in mind, it is possible to reap the benefits of dress codes while avoiding some of the more negative consequences. But in order to get those benefits, it is really important that it's implemented with care and forethought before a policy is just rolled out. The other thing that I wondered as I researched it further was I wondered if the momentum for the dress code movement was stalled a little bit or derailed in any way by the pandemic, because there was such a move for being online and over Zoom that I wonder if the conversation sort of fizzled out when people were just taking classes in their pajamas for a while. I want to thank you for listening to my presentation today. If you have any questions, you can always email me at kshaw10@dtcc.edu, and I hope you learned something new, like I did.